Carl Gustav Jung discovered something disturbing about the hidden power certain individuals exert over others, something that is rarely noticed until it is too late. He didn't use modern terms like malignant narcissist or gaslighting, but he described with surgical precision the mechanisms of the soul that keep us trapped in relationships that drain our life force. The key to all of this lies in the shadow. And when someone begins to free themselves from the other's control, when individuation begins, that's when the most subtle and dangerous game begins. At the start of any dysfunctional relationship, there is enchantment, a fascination. You feel that, finally, someone sees you. Someone validates your existence, listens to you, values you. But little by little, almost imperceptibly, that fascination turns into emotional dependency. You begin to measure your worth by the reflection you see in that person's eyes. And what Jung discovered is that this doesn't happen by chance. It's a reflection of the unconscious. According to Jung, we all have a hidden, rejected side. The shadow. It carries repressed traits, pains, fears, and undeveloped potential. And when we do not recognize it in ourselves, we project it onto others. People with inflated ego structures, those who constantly need to dominate, control, feel superior, use the other as a projection screen. They are not loving, they are trying to keep alive an identity that would collapse without the submissive gaze of the other. Jung didn't speak of manipulation in modern terms, but he described the archetypes involved in this game. The savior, the victim, the manipulator, the orphan. They all live within us, and that's why we are vulnerable to these games. When someone with a narcissistic structure realizes they are losing control over you, when you begin to grow stronger psychologically, they don't simply walk away. They intensify the game subtly, precisely, FEARFULLY. It is at this point that the unconscious counterattack begins. The person who once made you feel small now says you've changed, that you've become selfish, cold, insensitive, that your personal growth has taken you away from love. Jung saw this as a response from the other's shadow to your growing light. He described this as the moment when the self, the regulating center of the psyche, begins to emerge, provoking defensive reactions from those still imprisoned in ego. The technical name Jung gave to the process of liberation was individuation, becoming who you are. But the ego of the other, which benefited from your submission, interprets this as betrayal. It feels it is losing the fuel that kept it strong, and here enters a dynamic that Jung described symbolically in countless dreams and myths he analyzed. When the hero frees himself from the witch, the dragon, the devouring mother, these archetypal figures do everything to bring him back into the cave. At this point, manipulation reaches almost invisible but devastating levels. Selective nostalgia begins. They say, "Remember how happy we were before you changed? You weren't like this. You were lighter, sweeter, more present." It is an attempt to make you doubt your evolution, to make you wish to be, once again, the weaker, more moldable, more convenient version of yourself. Jung wrote that the collective unconscious has a homogenizing force. It wants you to return to the pattern, to renounce individuality in the name of acceptance. And if that doesn't work, the most dangerous phase arrives: manufactured vulnerability. Suddenly, the person who once controlled you is now suffering, is sick, in crisis, needing you, and you, with your empathy, your sensitive heart, feel called to return, to care, to save. Jung saw this pattern repeatedly. When the self begins to shine, the collective shadow tries to dim its light through emotional appeal. They don't want help. They want you to abandon your journey so that you return to being food for their ego. It is important to understand that Jung never said the other does this consciously. This is an unconscious dance of masks and wounds, but the effect is the same. You begin to doubt yourself, to feel guilty for having boundaries, to think that maybe you're the insensitive one, and this doubt is the fertile ground where the other's shadow grows within you. Jung taught that healing requires differentiation, learning to distinguish between what is yours and what belongs to the other. It's what he called differentiated compassion. You can feel empathy without sacrificing yourself. You can love without self-annihilation. You can listen to the other's pain without abandoning your own truth. This is not coldness, it is psychic maturity. Each time you maintain a boundary, even in the face of manipulative tears, you strengthen your connection with the self. Each time you choose silence over impulsive reaction, you deactivate the cycle of projection. And each time you say no without guilt, you send a deep message to the collective unconscious. I am no longer a character in your theater. I am the author of my own story, but perhaps you still hesitate. Perhaps you still carry that sting of guilt when you see the other suffer. Perhaps you still feel there is something wrong with following your own path. And it is in that moment that Jung offers us the harshest and most liberating truth. Individuation requires crossing the abyss of rejection of the image the other projected onto you, rejection of the idea that you must be pleasant in order to be loved, rejection of the silent pact that made you carry weights that were never yours. This is the sacrifice, giving up the acceptance of others in order to attain the acceptance of oneself. And here lies the most beautiful paradox of the psyche. By becoming whole, you become less manipulable, but more loving, firmer, but more compassionate, more integrated, but less reactive. You transcend the games because you no longer need to win, only to be. Jung wrote that the unconscious forces we do not face become fate. And that is why this journey matters. Because if you do not look at your shadow and at the shadow of the other, you will end up unconsciously repeating the same cycles of suffering your parents lived, that your grandparents lived, that perhaps your children will live, if you do not break the chain. True liberation begins when you understand that the other is not the enemy, they are the mirror, and that your strength does not lie in proving anything to them, but in proving to yourself that you are worthy of being who you are, with boundaries, with voice, with light. Therefore, when the emotional game begins again, when the tears, the pleas, the crises appear, take a deep breath. Remember what is at stake. Not just your peace, but your soul. Because in the end, as Jung himself said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and no one, absolutely no one, is worth giving that up.